Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is VooDooVal, and I am going to be co-host, co-guest for today's pretty epic stream, if I do say so myself. I'm super excited to be here. See so many familiar faces in the chat. Stony, welcome in. Gareth, good to see you. Cody Bear, the one and only, welcome back.
Cody Bear.
Good to see you, Cody. We had Cody with us yesterday, so it's pretty cool to have you back in the chat. Laura, Robert, Courtney, we got Andreas. Is that how I say that?
Yeah, Andres. Fun fact, everybody in the chat. If you may not know, I have a twin brother. He looks exactly like this. I am not kidding. Exact replica of this. And he's in the chat with us. Andres Siller. Welcome, dude. Good to see you,
Double
man.
danger today. On the Siller front, so this is pretty cool. But yeah, I am Val. I am super excited to be here to jump back into a second day of wildfire awareness, and I am joined by something of an Adobe Live legend that you folks all hear about and don't see nearly enough, I think. But I have Paco with me today. How are you this afternoon, Paco?
I am doing amazing, and Val and I have been chatting about this all week and just before the show, and I just want to give a shout out for her for putting this together about the California wildfire awareness. This is actually that both her and I have been impacted by this, so very cool for her to spearhead this. And yeah, I'm excited to get into what we're gonna do with it today.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped. It's gonna be awesome, and I will say I'm just really thankful and super stoked to have you with me today, Paco, for this. I think it's really cool. But just in case there's some folks in the chat that don't know the legendary Paco, why don't you give everybody a little intro of yourself? Let folks know who you are and what you do, and what your astrological sign is, because that's very important if you know that. And then we'll kind of dive into what the stream is all about for today.
Yeah, that's it. So for those of you who do know me, I'm usually the guy behind the scenes making these productions happen. Speaking of productions happen, let me know how my mic sounds. Trace, let me know. I know you know how this sounds stuff. I think it sounds good, but it might go a little higher, so I want to make sure I have this dialed in. But anyways, here I am just working while I'm live, literally. I usually run behind the scenes for Adobe Live, take care of all the assets, usually on or sometimes on camera, so thank you, Val, for inviting me. But I also do photography. I've been doing video production and photography for a very long time. It's something that I still do on the side as a hobby side hustle, and it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. So I do love photographing landscape, and especially California landscape. So I'm gonna switch to my screen, and I'll show you just a little bit of my Instagram. So this is more or less some of the shots I like to do. I do crop for Instagram. I'm usually not cropping for that 4:5 ratio. But yeah, this is just kind of my bread and butter here. I absolutely love to do California landscape, and especially in the Sierras in Yosemite. So those of you that may know me, I used to live and work in Yosemite. This is actually where the intense passion for the Sierras in Yosemite all came about, is because I used to live there with a bunch of friends. We used to work and live in Yosemite. And I just found this newfound love for nature and preserving it and just doing everything I can to capture the nature that we all live in. So here's another one of Yosemite. This is in the high country that we go to a lot with my friends and my partner and I. So yeah, and on top of that, I'll also shoot some time lapses. These are called hyperlapses specifically. It's this pretty cool effect where you're essentially doing a moving time lapse and then you stabilize it in post and all that. And yeah, these are some of the things I like to do. I look like a weirdo when I'm shooting them, because if you're out there in the park and watching me do it, literally for 3 hours, you're just watching somebody sidestep, taking picture by picture. And if you don't know what I'm doing, it looks really weird.
I've always wondered that, because I imagine in my head that you're just like moving the camera inch by inch and like taking those pictures. And I'm like, if you're out there for like, I mean, I assume it's a few hours. Possibly.
Yeah, it depends on the real estate that I have to move with. Here's another one of Yosemite Falls.
Oh, that's so good.
But it could take anywhere from like 45 to 3 hours. I think the longest one was this one of the Palace of Fine Arts, and this one took about 3 hours.
Oh wow.
But
so
yeah,
worth it though. So worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always worth it. I mean, you know, it's a lot doing it, and then when you actually have the final piece in front of you, the payoff is huge.
I
And I also like
wonder.
doing little. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Val.
I was just gonna ask, what happens if like you catch some strange weather and like half of them are overcast and half of them are super sunny? Has that ever happened to you before?
Well, that actually looks amazing because you get to see the development of the clouds. That
Oh,
actually
okay.
happened to one that I was shooting, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago in the high country, and a storm rolled in. I'm not even kidding, and I got soaked, but it was all worth it because I'm like, oh man, the clouds are coming in. It's gonna downpour, and you can see the rain coming towards me. So
Oh, that's
I'll
so
have
cool.
that one out soon. But yeah, so this is the Insta. So
Yeah,
very cool
give
stuff.
Paco a follow on Instagram. If you are unable to travel, I've said this to numerous people, by the way, Paco. If you're unable to travel and you need a vacation, but you can't make it happen right now because of the current state of things, just go to Paco's Instagram. Just go. It
Oh
is a
wow.
vacation in and of itself. It is beautiful. It is inspiring, and it is just super cool to chill there and take a look at all the lapses and all of the photos and all that good stuff. It's a very cool place to be. So check it out. Check it out.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're
And one
very
more
welcome.
thing, everybody in the chat, hello. We gotta live some. We gotta give some love to the chat.
Yep.
I see Cody Bear. I see Wade. I see Andres, Laura, Robert, Courtney, Garrett, Stoney. Thank you all so much for joining us. I already see some questions coming in, so don't worry, we will get to them. Lauren was asking, what did you work in Yosemite? We actually worked for the concessionaire, so we didn't work for the National Park Service. If you've ever been to Yosemite, it's a little village, essentially, and it's big on hospitality. So I actually used to lifeguard in pools
Oh,
that they have there. You know, you go to Yosemite. I hope you don't spend all the time in the pool, but I did have a job because of that. But yeah, I just used to work there and the hospitality that they provided there.
I was a
Um,
lifeguard for a time too, actually. That is so funny. I was like a lifeguard swimming instructor for a time. I realized it was not anywhere near Yosemite, which is arguably way cooler, but we have some things in common there.
Very
But
cool.
yeah,
Did not know that.
pretty cool. So for those of you who are tuning in, especially if you were not here yesterday and you don't know what this couple of days is about, as Paco said, we are doing some designing for wildfire awareness. And if you scroll down below the video player, there's actually a resource pack that you can download. We've got some cool coloring pages in there for the piece that Cody Bear worked on yesterday. If you'd like to either download that and work on it digitally, or there is also a standard computer paper sized version if you'd like to just print it out in your home and color it traditionally. And then there's also a wildfire resources file that looks like this in there that has a folder with some design elements and things that we're going to get into today for a portion of today. But it also has these links for you folks, just in case you would like to learn a little bit more about the wildfires going on in California right now. There's some safety tips in there for those of you who are either very close to fire areas or know some folks who are and might want to share some helpful resources, information about how to stay safe when you are close to the fires, how to do your part in the community to ensure the safety of the wildlife that is coming through to more residential areas and things during that time. There's a link to the Cal Fire Twitter, because Cal Fire does post regular, very in-depth, very detailed updates on what is happening, including a video that they post almost weekly and pinned to the top of their Twitter that gives you basically the summation and rundown of what has gone on since the last update, which is very helpful. There's a ca.gov link in there for those of you, again, affected by the fires who may have lost very important documents and maybe need some help if you have lost a vehicle in the fire. There are lots of helpful links to help get you back on track there. And there's also a link to donate. If you are willing and able, we would love to encourage you folks to donate to those who are affected by the fires, and also donate to those who are working as first responders to these disasters going on. But one of the main points of this stream that I'm really stoked about is that not everybody can actually donate to a cause like this. Not everybody finds themselves in a position right now where that is a possibility for them. But I know that a lot of people who cannot donate would still very much like to help. And as Paco said, I am very directly affected by these fires. I've lived in Northern California most of my life. I went to school in Paradise, which was one of the main towns that was greatly affected by fires in the past. I'm sure everybody had heard of the Camp Fire. And back when that happened, I was not in a position where I could offer support financially. And I wished at that time that there was something I could do. So this time around, we've got this super cool stream going on where you folks can join us in designing things, be it illustration, graphic art. If you do animation, you could do animation, do some photo editing, whatever it is that you love to do. Do something inspired by the beauty of Northern California's nature or Southern California's nature. Though today we'll be focusing on Northern California, and post it to raise awareness, to keep what's happening on everybody's mind. Share links if you can, because that can still sort of keep what's going on everybody's brain. And those posts can actually move forward to get to somebody who maybe can support financially. So we can all still do our part if we can. And if you're unable to donate or to take the time to design, you can make some friends in chat here today, and you can retweet or repost the creations that they do, and kind of put in some time to help with the awareness of the fire. So we got some pretty cool ways that you can get involved today. I hope that you will join us. I'm pretty stoked about it, and I think we're going to begin today focused on Paco, because Paco, as you guys saw, is a wonderful photographer, and I feel like the heart of his work is directly focused on the beauty of California and its nature spots. So I think we're going to take a look at that and kind of walk us through your process. Paco, what do you do? What kind of gear and stuff do you use, and how do these pieces come together for you?
Yes. Well, first of all, Val, again, thank you so much for doing that and giving that heartfelt information about the wildfires and how everybody can contribute. So again,
my
round of
pleasure.
applause for Val. Thank you so much. Very cool. Yeah, so now we're just gonna jump into Lightroom for the photography segment of this stream. Again, I wanna say this is a safe space. Anybody, if you have any questions about photography, editing, drawing and painting, when we get into that with Val, now's a chance to ask them. Val and I look at the chat pretty closely. We do have a call out in case you are on YouTube. We are on Behance. So if you go to be.net/Adobe Live, that is where the conversation is taking place. So if you have any questions in terms of camera gear, settings, or how to edit, do pop them in the chat, because we will try our best to get to those questions.
We also got a couple of questions coming in just real quick that I will pin down. We are doing the wildfire awareness streams for these two segments. I would like to personally kind of continue to do designs outside of Adobe Live and things to keep stuff going. So I'll be doing stuff, and I'm sure there's some folks in the chat who will probably also continue to do some stuff. But for now, it was yesterday and today that we're focusing on it. And the resource pack is it should be, actually, it looks like it's not included in the link down below, but if you go to, maybe we can get a link to yesterday's stream, because yesterday's stream definitely has that link.
I think Cody just linked it. She
perfect.
The resource pack up there.
There we go.
Thank you for doing that, Cody.
So there's the resource pack from Cody if you'd like to download it. And I also saw some questions coming in from Christine. Would you like these things shared on Facebook? Share them any place you feel comfortable. I am predominantly a Twitter and Instagram person, so if you post it there, that is where I will see it. I won't see it on Facebook, but if you use Facebook and you like Facebook and you want to spread the word on Facebook, please feel free. Please go for it. Share it wherever you want.
Very cool. I see a question from Laura. What camera gear do you use for photography and videography? Very good question. I actually have two different bundles, one for photo or one for video. For cameras or for photography, I've been shooting with the tried and true Tank. It is an older camera in terms of how fast technology has evolved, but I am shooting with a Canon 5D Mark III. And the reason I'm still shooting with it is because that thing is a tank. I have put it through so much stuff in the outdoors, in snow, rain. I've dropped it in water and ocean water, and that thing is still clicking. So,
oh man,
I'm shooting that thing until it dies. My only complaint is it is heavy. When you start backpacking, just 10, 15, 20 miles in the backcountry to get shots like these, every ounce counts, and the Canon 5D Mark III is not the lightest camera, especially the lenses.
Oh man.
So that's my only complaint, but that's all right. Once you get into the season and your legs start getting used to the pain, then it's all right. It's always worth it once you come back with the photos.
Get photographer
yeah,
buff, guys. That's how it works.
Yeah, so I just want to show you some quick photos that I've shot over the years of California. And a lot of my style of photography actually implements a lot of HDR. So everybody shoots different ways. Everybody's got different styles. There is no right or wrong way to shoot cameras or shoot photography. It's really just how you want it and what your style is. You know, and I've been watching these streams for years, and I've learned so much through other photographers that have come on the show. And I think that's one thing we all could embrace, and that's one thing I embrace, is I'm a forever student. I am always learning photography. I learn new ways to do things, and then, you know, you take those little things and you start kind of building your own style. So usually what my goal is when shooting photography is I like to capture as much dynamic range as I can. That's why I shoot HDR, and HDR means in one click of a button, I shoot 3 different exposures. So I'll shoot a photo that's overexposed, I'll shoot a photo that's underexposed, and then I'll shoot a photo that's just right. And when you blend those, you actually have all the data of all of those exposures, so you're not blowing out the sky or blowing out the foreground because it's too dark. We'll actually get into that in a sec, and I'll show you how to do that. But a lot of these photos that you're seeing here are actually HDR, and you've probably seen HDR in the past, and I think you could definitely overdo it. I mean, there was a look, I think, like in the 2009 or like 2011, where it was just like intense HDR. That is not the HDR I like to go for. That is just overkill. I like to shoot HDR to get all that data, and then I always try and edit to what I remember it looking like. So I guess my approach is more of a natural edit to what I remember the Vista looking like, right?
Nice.
So
also, Andreas says you still have a Canon lens of his. It sounds like he's a little salty about that. And
I still have that lens, Trace. Thank you, yes, for letting me borrow it for over 4 years now.
Gareth says sibling borrowing is the worst. Tell me about it. My brother still has like several boxes of my personal Legos. And I don't know if I'm ever getting those back. So we'll see. It's a struggle that we live, Andreas, but we'll survive. Maybe also
you'll get
have,
it when you come visit in 2 weeks. Maybe you'll finally get your lens back.
Yeah. Christine wants to know if you'll be posting a software/hardware list anywhere, or maybe you already have at some point, because she's curious about just everything that you use. Is that something you've posted somewhere, or something
I have not posted, but Christine, feel free to DM me on Behance. I believe my profile should be attached to this event. So if you go to info, that should be my profile, and send me a DM, and I can send you some of the gear I'm shooting with.
Awesome.
Yeah, just looking at these photos again. This is Yosemite. This is looking at Glacier Point. If you've ever been to Yosemite, you absolutely have to go to Glacier Point. But this is looking from the valley. This is one of my favorite photos here that I've taken. This was actually in Bodega Bay. The sunset was unreal. It's just one of those things you just don't plan for. And you know, I didn't even have my camera gear. I was hanging out with some friends, and I saw this, and I was like, later, guys. And I just ran because I saw the sunset developing. It was absolutely beautiful.
You got the designer spidey sense, and you're like, I'm gonna need my camera in about 20 minutes.
Like, all right, I'll see you in like 2 or 3 hours.
Nice.
This is actually close to San Francisco. This is called 10 Mile Rock Beach. Very beautiful. Again, ocean front photography is just another thing that we're spoiled by here in California. So we're going to be looking at 3 of these, and we like to make these streams interactive. So we're going to edit 3 of these photos, and then you all get to choose which one of those photos that I edit Val is going to illustrate. So that'll be the second half part of the stream.
Yep, pretty pumped. So get ready because we will have you guys vote. And yeah, we're going to do kind of an interactive collab. So as Paco said, he's going to be working on the images, and then whichever one you choose, I'm going to pull into Photoshop, and I'm going to do a cool illustrative piece of it, which I'm excited about. So
yeah, I see a question from Laura. How many lenses do you usually take with you when backpacking, and do you use UV filters? With backpacking, I usually just take 1 lens. I like to shoot really wide. So usually the 16 to 35 covers most of the ground. And I do like zoom lenses because it gives you a lot more flexibility than a fixed prime. So I usually aim for the 16 to 35 when I'm backpacking. And UV filters, I used to shoot a lot with those, but not recently. And that's mainly because I shoot a lot of sunset and sunrise. And I usually don't need the UV filters in the low light situations that I'm in. I can just do it in camera. If I had a subject like a person or something and I needed a really shallow depth of field, then possibly, but I have found myself not bringing them recently. I used to a lot.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And two more questions. I had been about to ask kind of a similar question, and to kind of add on to like how many cameras you bring with you and how many lenses you bring with you and all that kind of stuff. What does that setup sort of look like? Like, what's that like going out into the wilderness with this kind of equipment? Do you have like a special backpack that you carry it all in with like protection for your equipment, or do you just like kind of have it around your neck and just go for it?
Great question. I used to baby my gear. Let's put it that way. I used to put my DSLR in its own satchel and then wrap it up all nice. And then the more I did this, the more I'm just like, I don't need this weight. And I think, you know, when you buy a new toy or something new that you just want to baby and not scratch, and then you get that first scratch on it and you just stop caring.
Every action figure I own.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's kind of what happened. I started getting dings and scratches on the camera, and I was like, hey, it still works. And then I ditched the satchel. So what I do now is usually when we backpack here in California, you have to be bear aware. And most of the places that we go to, you need a bear canister so that you can put your food in a bear canister so bears don't get into it. And what I usually do now is I'll put my DSLR inside that bear canister, so it's kind of like this protective casing, and I need to bring that anyway. And then I'll wrap it with usually a jacket that I have that's down jacket, so it's nice and squishy, and it's got kind of like this soft layer to it.
Nice,
so it's kind of making use of the gear you already have while also protecting the gear without bringing anything extra.
Yeah, because I imagine you'd have to make sure you're not carrying in excess, because the like mobility is key, especially when, you know, because I've been camping a lot, I've been hiking a lot in my life, and there's a lot of precautions that you have to take when you're out there, because it's a lot of fun. It's an excellent experience, but you do have to account for personal safety, and when you're out in the wilderness, anything can happen. So making sure you got everything locked down as best you can is probably the best bet.
100%. All right, we got 2 more cues, and then I am gonna get into editing.
Yeah, we got Jan Eric asking about using a polarizing filter, and if so, can that be combined with an ND filter?
Technically, yes. You got to make sure the threading lines up. You know, if you have like a 77 millimeter polarizing filter, and then the UV filter is a different threading, then it obviously won't fit. But you can't stack them. A polarizing filter actually usually used for videography, and then ND filter, yeah, sometimes with photography or both. And then Laura's asking, do you also shoot with phone or only with DSLR? Good question. Usually when I'm going to make edits, I always bring my DSLR. I do shoot with a phone just because sometimes it's just, I don't want to bring out my DSLR if it's in my backpack and I want a quick capture. But those captures are more just kind of as memories, you know, like whenever I'm showing people photos of our trips, and I'll take quick ones on my iPhone. But you know, usually when I take my DSLR out, it's more of a production. You know, I'll have the tripod out. It's usually sunset, and I know I'm gonna hunker down and actually get some photos going.
Gotcha.
Okay, cool. So let's get into editing.
Yeah,
so we have 3 pictures here. All right. This is a single exposure. This is of Half Dome in Yosemite. This is a HDR exposure of Lake Tahoe. And then this is also an HDR exposure as well of, I think this was Pacifica, close to San Francisco. So I'm going to go ahead and just edit these 3 just to show you my process and what it's going to be like to recreate these photos. Now, keep in mind, and you know, if somebody's ever done this, let me know, because it's very difficult to do. But usually when you do an edit and you try and recreate that edit, it never comes out the same, right? It's like if you draw something or you paint something and you want to recreate it exactly, there's always going to be little nuances, but the idea is there. So the goal here is to show you the process and how I edit these. They might not look exactly like the original edits, but the thought process will still be there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with this single exposure of Half Dome. So we're in Lightroom Classic. I am a keyword or shortcut freak. So I love using shortcuts to get around the app. So right now we're in the, I think this is the looking view. We're going to go to the develop module though, so we can start editing. Okay. So here we are. I hit D, and now we are in the develop module. So as you can see, all our little editing panels come up over here. And then I'm just going to explain real quick what's going on up here. So this is the histogram. And I like to look at this a lot while editing my photos because I like to see what's going on with the data within the photo. Okay, so if you kind of hover over here, you can see what's happening right now. So in the blacks, when it starts to go up, it says that means that there's a lot of data. You know, there's no data, a lot more data. So as you can see, there's a lot of data in the blacks, not so much in the midtones around here, which is the shadows and the exposure. And then we have a little bit of highlights that it's most likely the sky and the snow. So what I first like to do is, since I'm shooting raw and we have so much data in these exposures, is I like to save whatever's being clipped. And I know that something is being clipped because right now this little guy is telling me that it's not gray. If there's nothing being clipped, it would be gray. But this little guy's telling me that, hey, there's some blacks right now that are being clipped. And then if you click on that, you can kind of see where it is. And it's kind of hard to tell, but if you look real closely right here, you can see that these blacks right here are being clipped, which means that there is no data in here because they're so dark. Okay.
Oh, okay.
This might be irrelevant to the photo because I'd say that it's not really a focal point of the shot. Obviously, our focal point and subject is halftone here. So, you know, it depends if you want to save them. But what's cool about Lightroom and shooting raw is that there's so much data here that I actually can save them. So if I bring the black slider to the right, it's no longer gray. It's no longer being clipped. So I just like to do that just so I know that all the data is being used here, right? And then I naturally like to go for the HDR look. So I like to bring down the highlights and bring up the shadows. So we're going to go ahead and bring these highlights down. As you can see, that sky starting to come out. And then I'm going to bring up the shadows so we can bring the foreground, which is mainly in the shadows, start to look nice and exposed. And boom, check it out. Nice. So just by these two edits, you can see now, you know, this is before and after. This is from one single exposure again, right? So there's a lot of data shooting raw. So just by doing these sliders, there's already a lot going on here. Okay.
Also, Cody Bear is saying that this is the peak that she drew in yesterday's Wildfire segment, and it is indeed. So we've got a little, we've come full circle today, kind of jumping into this.
Yeah. So if you saw Cody and Val yesterday, she had Yosemite with halftone in the backdrop and some redwoods and some California poppies. So
very cute,
very encompassing of the landscape that's here in California.
Felt very California for sure. Yes, we loved it.
Okay. All right. So right after this, I usually like to go to the tone curve and start to mess with this. And you'll see immediately that after this effect, it really starts to give it that contrast, right? I'm still in the before. Let's go back to the after. Okay. So usually I like to just hit it with an S curve. Okay. Right. So I'm going to bring this guy down and then start to bring the highlights up. And immediately you can kind of see the contrast that's been put in this photo. And again, big difference. So I like in Lightroom, these little guys right here. They're the on and off switch for whatever panel you're working with. So this is with the tone curve. Oh, sorry, it's up here. This is with the tone curve and that's off. And as you can see, this kind of looks flat, a little grayish. But when I add that tone curve, it starts to give it that contrast. And
yeah, that's like, it is a very small change, but it makes so much difference.
Yeah, and I usually like to mess with the darks and the shadows and just kind of see what's going on here. My style of editing is a lot of just push and pull. You know, it's not like I look at something and I know exactly what I'm going to do. I have an idea, but I just kind of mess a lot with the tools that I know and then go from there. So if I want to bring up halftone a little more, I can bring up this midtone slider. And then I don't like how bright the highlights are going, so I might bring this back down or maybe even add another control point here. Right? Cool. So this is starting to look good. Right, and then from here, I usually like to add some vibrance. So there's two ways to add color. There's vibrance or saturation. Saturation is just a global slap of color, right? It's just going to take everything that's on this photo and just give it saturation. Vibrance, it uses this smart Adobe Sensei stuff that just kind of targets colors without adding too much. I know one is the skin tones, and I think the blues, it kind of careful on that. So I usually just touch vibrance and not saturation. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring that up, and you can see it's starting to target the things that could really benefit from color, like the sun here, this highlight, some of the trees, right, and then some of the glow on it. And it does it without kind of giving it too, like, just an over palette of saturation. So I really like what's going on there, right?
Yeah, it's funny how, like, in the original photo, I don't even think that I really was like registering like that splash of warm there on the right with that light. And like now I can really feel it, and it just like kind of like really changes the mood and atmosphere of the piece. So it feels more like when I look at it, like I'm there, you know?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
looking
I
good.
agree. And that's actually a good segue, Val, into one of the other things I like to do when we have a contrast of light and shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't usually do brushing for every photo,
Mm-hmm.
but when we start to have sort of this dance of shadows and sunlight in landscape, then I do kind of like to accentuate that with some of the brushing. And we'll get into that in just a sec. So yeah, I like to usually use these global edits, right? Kind of knock those out first. And you can already tell, I mean, this is going to be a big difference. So this is the before, and then here's the after.
Nice.
Right? And then usually what I like to do is I just like to start kind of dancing with the light or painting with the light and kind of focusing your eye on where you think the subject would be. And again, there's no right or wrong answer here. I mean, anybody's artistic interpretation of how a photo should be edited is totally up to you. I like to kind of draw your eye more with the lights and contrast that with the shadows. So that's where I like to do some of the brushing. So here is the brush up here. I can just click on this, or I can hit K. K is the shortcut for the brush. Okay. And then I usually like to select either burn or dodge. So dodge is to brighten, burn is to darken. And in case you forgot, it'll tell you right there. So let's start with dodging a little bit. And you can see that preset for that brush is just set to 0.25 of exposure. And it may not seem like much, but you'll see the difference that it does. Okay.
And while you're doing that, we've got Leah Jackson in the chat saying, I like that you're explaining the tools. I know certain things make things better, but I don't know the technical reasons why. So I also really appreciated that, because when you were talking about saturation and vibrance, to be perfectly honest, I didn't know the difference, because when I use Photoshop, I just use like hue and saturation. And so kind of understanding the two of them can help us, learning from you and like hanging out in the chat, you know, when we go to do our own projects, make a more informed decision about how we're going to edit, because now we know what they do. So
yeah, and fun fact, I actually was the same way before I joined Adobe. And then by watching these streams, we've had a lot of pro Lightroom and Photoshop editors come on, and they actually explain it. And I was like, that's how you do it. So again,
nice.
Forever students. We're always
Yes.
forever students.
100%. Also, welcome in Alice Lee. We got Alice Lee in the chat. Appreciate
Lee,
you being here.
on?
Thank you.
Cool. So back to brushing. What I kind of want to do is just highlight these areas that are getting hit by the sun. Okay, so you have one right here that we called out, and then I have just a little one over here. Okay, so I like to go to the brush settings here, and usually the feather I'll keep around anywhere from like 60 to 100. You know, you don't want to have no feathering. It's going to blend the brushing a lot easier if you have some feathering. And then the flow, I actually like to keep it low, because what the flow does is it's one of those things. I'll show you. You can make your, you can see what brushing you're doing by hitting O. So O is going to give us this little red painting on the photos. And the red is actually where the effect is taking place. So if you see this, if I take this flow all the way to 100, you're going to see that this red is very dark. It's very noticeable. That's because this brushing is taking into effect 100%. But if we bring the flow down, say to like 30%, it's kind of the same thing. What is it in Photoshop, Val? It's just the opacity, or
yeah, like opacity or fill. There's
brushing with something.
Two. Yeah. You can do it to your brush or to your layer. So you can change the opacity down, you can change the fill down, and there is flow as well for the brush specifically. And I like to use that as well, because then, like you said, it doesn't have like a super harsh strength. And if I want more, I could just layer on top, kind of, you know, like just keep working in that space instead of having like this sharp dash of effect that doesn't really blend well with my piece. So
yeah. So it's the same idea here with the low flow. You can see that red is no longer super intense, right? Each time I go over this area, it makes it a little bit more red, and it applies that effect a little more. And I like starting off this way, because I don't like to just do the effect intense. I like to kind of brush it in and then see how it's looking the more I kind of brush it in. So maybe we'll go to like a 30, right? I like to just brush in these highlights.
Jan Eric is saying the tone module versus the tone curve module. What are the differences between them when adjusting the highlights and shadows? Do they work differently?
Let's see. So here is the tone module. And then the tone curve module. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, John? I see the tone curve module and then the tone module. Let me know what you mean by the tone module. I see the tone curve.
Also, we got Tim Mobest in the chat. Welcome in, Tim. It's good to see you. We got
What's
like
up, Tim
Adobe
Mobest?
OG audience today. This is pretty cool. We can't, honestly, if any other friends from the Adobe Live team want to come hang out, they can't, because if we get one more person in here, we're going to become way too powerful for the internet. This is not, we got to slow it down, guys.
Cool. So let's see, where's my brushing? Okay. And then again, I like to always turn these settings on and off just to see how it's looking. And again, sometimes you'll look at this and be like, well, Paco, this is so subtle. What's the point? And I will say, yes, on first pass, you are correct. But all these little edits that you do make a difference, right? It's like, if it's just one little thing, it'll be like, it's not doing anything. But when you add all those little brushes and all those little edits and you put them all together, then it really does make a difference on the whole photo. So again, as you can see, it makes that area just a little bit brighter.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to do here.
I have to say, honestly, using Lightroom has taught me how to be a little bit more patient with my work. Yesterday, we talked about like, you know, I'm super impatient when it comes to using layers and like trying to get a piece done and stuff. But like, I've had to kind of slow my roll on using the effects in Lightroom, because I always am like, well, I want it to be saturated. So I just drag that slider, you know, all the way over. But it, you know, when you get in, you start to appreciate the subtlety of small changes that build upon each other. You can kind of take a breath and appreciate it for what it is. And he's right. It really does make a difference if you just do little bits at a time.
Make a difference. Oh, yeah. I see Chris Blackstock in the chat. What's up, man? Good to see you. Chris has been a very awesome guest on our show, I think 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah.
So yeah, very cool to see you in the chat.
Paco is on camera. Yes, this is a very special
this is rare. I'm usually playing host if I'm on camera at all, but this is the first time I'm actually playing a little bit of a guest. Well, let me know how I'm doing on time, because I'm realizing that this is taking longer, you know, just in the whole live thing. So let me know when you think we need to shift gear to drawing or picnic. So I don't know if we'll be able to do all the edits with the way we're going, but
if you give me like 45 to an hour, I think I can get something pretty nifty done. So I don't know if you want to dive into the other ones too, if you want to edit the one and then kind of show the other 3 that we can vote on. It's really up to you.
Let's do that. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. And just to circle back on John's question, yeah, they do work differently, John. So I would recommend when you're working on photos, work with these first. You know, Lightroom is kind of built so that you kind of work from a top-down thing. Like, you know, usually if you shoot raw, usually you don't want to mess with the white balance, or if you shoot auto on raw, I've seen that it usually nails the white balance pretty well. But that's usually something that you want to knock out first. You know, you don't want to be working with a photo that looks like this, obviously, or a photo that you know, just has too much magenta or doesn't look natural. So obviously that's one of the things that you want to knock out first. But I usually like the way that my Canon camera shoots auto, so I usually don't mess with it. But yeah, with this tone module, I'd say mess with these things first and then start messing with the tone curve, right? I usually wouldn't recommend to go do the tone curve first, and then go to the global module, because this is kind of like, it's kind of like that saturation slider, right? It's going to slap it on everything. So I'd say get a good base model of how you want your photo to look first, working with these, and then start messing with the tone curve. And again, this isn't a tried and true rule or what you should do, but in my experience, it just gets me at a good starting point, a good sort of base canvas working with these first, and then when I start messing with these second, okay? All right, cool. So we were back with brushing. So what we did is we did a little bit of dodging, which was lightening it. Now, what I like to do is contrast that light with a little bit of burning so that you can really kind of see that dance of light going on. So I'm going to do that real quick. We're going to go to burn. And then all the places that I kind of did some dodging, I'm just kind of going to contrast that with a little bit of burning. And I want to be really subtle here, because I do like how this has some natural HDR shadows. I don't want to totally darken it, but I do want to affect it a little bit. So I'm actually going to turn down this flow just a little more so that effect isn't as intense from the get-go.
I love that it has little markers to kind of show you where you've been working, I assume is what that is.
Yeah, it shows you your different brush strokes.
When I do it in Photoshop, I'm like, did I edit this? Is it did I brighten this or is it just bright here? And then I have to go back and look at all my layers. So that's nice.
Yeah.
But granted, I'm messier with my layers in Photoshop than I am organized in Lightroom. So it's also a bit of user error there. But yeah, it's just nice. It's very to the point here in Lightroom, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Christine's asking to literally top down on the adjustments in Lightroom. Yeah, I would say when you're starting an edit, just do that. You know, I usually just do work top down. Again, you don't have to stick to this rule. Rules are meant to be broken. They're more like guidelines. But usually when I edit, I usually do the tone module first, and then I'll start messing with tone curves and other things like brushing. Because again, that tone module is just going to give you a solid base layer on a photo that's looking good, and then you can go in and start doing other little nuanced edits like that.
You were getting some compliments in the chat from Jamie,
Jamie
who
Cherry.
says that
That's my partner.
Oh, really? Oh, hello,
Jamie.
She says that you are natural at being the guest, which I think is absolutely true. Yeah, you're doing a wonderful job. I'm super stoked to have you here. So,
well, thanks for bringing me on, Val. This is all Val's idea, by the way. She's the one that brought me on here.
Who better to have though than Paco, who literally, you know, it's like I said earlier, so much of your work like is the beauty of nature and like specifically the beauty of awesome. She
gets a little shout out. This is her.
Nice. Very mysterious
adventures.
Very mysterious shout out there. I like it. But yeah, you know, like so much of your work, it showcases the beauty of California, which is so important for today and yesterday. And also, you know, we kind of get it because we're up here in Northern California and we've kind of experienced, you know, what happens when these fires kind of roll through. So I felt like your voice was a very important one to be heard today. And I'm glad
we're out here.
Yep.
We out here.
We are.
Okay, very cool. So this is already looking good to me, right? We could get a little more nuance, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to do a more deep dive on this than I usually do. The only thing I do want to do is I want to show you a cool trick that I learned actually from Aaron Nace that I've actually implemented a lot in my photography. And that is working with range masks. So usually with skies, I like to really bring them out, especially if you have some really, really pretty color. So what I like to do is I like to bring down a radial filter. And again, O will hide what's being affected, but I like to keep it on just to see what is being applied to the photograph for now. And then what I like to do is take this radial filter and I will crunch it like this, okay? Because as you can see, this kind of feathers it out, right?
Yeah.
So this kind of feathers the radial filter, but I kind of want to keep it nice and tight. And then kind of go with the direction of the sky more or less, and then bring it down. And then what I like to do is, you see how the effect is being applied to half dome, which is not the sky, obviously. So a cool way to get around that, assuming the tones aren't terribly close to each other, is with range masks. And you can turn those on. You have two options. You have color or luminance. I find luminance usually works better. I'm curious to know how it's going to try here because they do seem to be the same luminance more or less. But if you turn this on, and then I want this to stick to the brighter parts of it. So I'm going to slide this to the right. You can see it starts to take the effect off half dome and kind of subtly brings it on to the sky. And then you can usually mess with the smoothness to dial it in a little better, right? So that's
fancy.
That's kind of more or less the idea here. So, and you can see it's applying the red to the sky and not applying it to the rock. And it's mixing it up a little bit here with the snow because obviously the snow and clouds look the same. But the idea is there, right? And then from here, I can just apply this adjustment, or I can apply effects to just this adjustment, and it saved burn, which I don't want it to be burned. So I can, if I double click this, it'll reset it just to 0. What I like to do is add a little bit of dehaze. So I'm gonna go ahead and add it, and I'll show you what this effect does. It just kind of darkens that sky. Right? It gives it a little more contrast, and I like that. It makes it moodier, way moodier. Okay, and again, we'll see this effect on and off. So that's off, and then that's on.
Yeah.
See? So it gives that sky and those clouds a little more contrast and makes it a little bit more moody and adds to that drama of Half Dome. So That's it. Yep. So that's as far as I'm gonna take this edit for now, because I do want to get into HDR, and then we're gonna vogue. So man, I see why people run out of time here on streams.
It looks like there's some discussion in the chat about rather this is actually Paco here with us, or if you and your brother have switched places. I can neither confirm nor deny.
I can confirm nor deny that. And that is the power of being a twin. We
any
can forever...
rumors of twin shenanigans.
Twin shenanigans. All right, so real quick, here is our before, and then here is our after.
Beautiful.
So again, it's kind of this natural HDR look that I think doesn't go overboard, but it's how I remember the Vista, right? So I really like how that came out.
Nice. Yeah, well done.
Okay, so the last thing we're going to do before we gotta skedaddle here is I'm going to show you how to edit some HDR photography. So here are the 3 exposures that I took for this. So as you can see here, I exposed for the foreground, okay? Because if I expose for the sky in this shot, then I don't have a foreground, okay? And then here's the midtone shot. So here is a bright exposure, here's a midtone exposure, and then here's a dark exposure. And each one of these exposure does its due diligence in capturing the different tonal ranges in this photo, right? Every time you shoot at a sun, you got exposed for one thing or another. But the hack is, if you want all of this, you can do 3 different exposures, combine them all, and then you have one photo with an awesome amount of data. And I'm gonna show you how you do that. It's super simple in Lightroom. So you take your 3 exposures and you highlight all 3 of them. I just clicked shift click to get all of them. And then the shortcut for this is Control H, or you can right click and go to photo merge and then HDR, okay? So Lightroom's gonna work its magic. It's gonna always have this auto aligned. You can do auto setting, it'll mess with all the settings for you, but when I have a lot to work with, I'll hit this just so I can kind of look at all these not looking raw, and then I can choose which ones I want to keep. But since we're doing one, I'm gonna disable this. And then deghosting, this is good when there's a lot of movement in the photo. So if you had 3 exposure and there's people moving, depending on the amount of deghosting that you choose, it's actually gonna highlight what the movement was and get rid of it by finding an exposure that didn't have that movement.
Gotcha.
So this is very cool to do, but keep in mind the higher you go, it might take an exposure that didn't have so much data in the shadow, so it could be noisy. So just keep in mind, when you do this, look at your dark parts or your bright parts, because they could be a little too noisy, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and merge this, and then you're gonna see the magic that happens. It's super fast. Boom. So what it did is it combined these 3 photos and made it into a format called DNG, okay? And now I have one photo with all that information combined into one exposure. So what you're gonna see here now is if I bring those highlights down, boom, I have the sky saved, okay? When I bring those shadows up, boom, I have the foreground saved. If I were to do that exposure or those edits with one of those exposures, it's either gonna be too noisy or I won't have the data.
Gotcha. Okay? Gotcha.
And then again, looking at this histogram, I always kind of try and go for a nice bell curve of data all throughout the tonal ranges. Okay, I see that I'm clipping my black somewhere. Clicking this, it's just up here again. Very, you know, this is a sign of a good shot because there's just this tiny amount that was clipped, and that's okay. But we'll just save it because we can. So I'll bring those blacks up. I'm gonna add some vibrance to it. All right, really get that color in there. And then I'm gonna mess with the tone curve. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it that S curve that I love to give all my photos, okay? And then from here, I'll choose, you know, do I want a little bit higher on those midtones? I don't wanna bring it too high because I start to lose those shadows, you know, that contrast of light. So I'm actually gonna bring it down. Let me bring this down a little bit too. Yeah, we'll keep it somewhere there, okay? And again, just with these simple edits, let's look at this difference, right? That's our before, that's the after.
Yeah.
Oh, and one thing with HDR, when you have very bright areas to places like this, sometimes it can give an effect called chromatic aberration, where you're gonna see sort of color fringing upon this area. It's honestly not too bad here, but I've seen with other HDR shots that you could just see like this rainbow color line across high contrast areas like this, but Lightroom has a solution for everything. If you just go down here to lens correction and hit remove chromatic aberration, it'll get rid of that. Okay, so by default in HDR shots, I always have that on. Okay, and the only thing that I will do here is I'm just gonna do a little bit of brushing again to play with that dance of contrasting light that I always like to shoot. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with dodging, And Val, let me know if I need to slow down here and answer some questions because I'm pretty heads down
Yeah,
right
we got
here.
some question in from Parmeet just saying any tips on how to darken or brighten, how dark or bright the images should be when clicking the 3 shots. So I think he's talking about like the different
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what he's
shots you
talking
had.
about.
And did you say that it takes it like one click takes all 3 of
Yeah,
those
so
shots?
this is a great question, and it's honestly highly dependent on your camera, the type of camera you have, and the way its UI works. It's usually called two different things in the photo. It's called what is it? Oh, I'm blanking out here. I know how to get to it on my camera, but it's usually called photo stacking, I believe might be one of them, or honestly just HDR. But it's on older models, I think it's called stacking. And what you do is you have that meter with your camera, right? Usually when you shoot and you want to have good exposure, you aim to have that meter on 0, right? If you go to -1, -2, then you're being darker 1 or 2 stops. If you go to the bright, it'll be +1, +2, and now you're being overexposed 1 or 2 stops. So when you pick the 3 exposures, you want 1 and 0. I usually go for the dark one at -2, and then for the bright one, I go +2. And usually, yeah, so Robert's got the right idea. It's +1, 0, or -1. I like to do -2, 0, +2. So there's no right or wrong way. Robert's way will work just as good as my other one. I just like to make them a little bit darker and a little bit brighter for me. So bracketing, yes, Jean, thank you. It's not stacking, it is bracketing. That's what it is. So some newer models now just call it HDR. A lot of the older models call it bracketing.
Gotcha.
And you just enable bracketing. And then one thing I have to do on my Canon camera is I have to set it to a timer. So, you know, if you click the shutter once, it's just going to take that shot and that's it. But if I do it to a 2-second countdown timer or a 10-second countdown timer, then at the click of it, once it counts down from 2 to 0, it's going to fire all 3 shots on one shutter.
Nice.
And you want to do something like that because you don't want to be hand holding the camera and introduce little movement in between shots. You know, obviously you want to be doing this with a tripod. You can do it handheld, but you got to have a lot of light. But you want to minimize movement. So HDR is going to work when you have no movement and you have a tripod. So shoot HDR with tripods for sure.
Awesome.
And yeah.
Daniel jumped in real quick. He says he has to go by, but he wanted to make sure we know. His first comment says, wow, that Adobe Access app is awesome. I need to re-download Behance too because this is so sick. Beautiful work. Dope stuff, guys. Major keys to be sharing these things for free. Y'all really for the creators. We try.
Daniel, I appreciate it. Thank you. There's some good words. I love it.
Thank you. Appreciate you jumping in, and I hope to see you another time, man.
Hope to see you. I think we just gotta be Behance believer now.
Looks like your bro is dipping out as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you having us or having you here.
Cool. So I'm just finishing up the brushing here. So again, I see this bright area, right? And I want to accentuate that. And right now you see that it's starting to get brighter, but you know, you have this shadow that I'm increasing the exposure here, and I want to contrast this with this dark areas. So we're going to switch it up here. We're going to go to burn. Okay. And now I'm going to bring this exposure down, and then same idea here. We're going to make this darker. Oh, hold on a second. I didn't do a new control point, so everything I did was nulled. Don't forget this pro tip here. When you're done with some edits, make sure you hit done, so then you can start a new brush. Okay. So here's a new brush. Now I can do the dodging. And you can see where it's taking effect.
Yeah, that's really great just to be able to visualize that there with the red, because sometimes when you are applying the effect to a piece you're working on, because it's changing it before your eyes and not showing you a marker where those changes are being made at, it can sometimes be really easy to lose the edits visually that you're making. And maybe go a little too far or not far enough when you're working on it. So this is a really cool way just to keep track of what exactly you're working on.
100%. Okay. This was actually set to brighten, so I actually got to turn it down. There we go. This is what I want. And I want to brush this in a little more. And now you can really start to see this contrast, you know? So again, this is the stuff that I like to do. I like to really paint the light and paint the darks and really kind of play with that light. That's usually what what I like to do when I'm shooting. Even when I'm shooting, this is stuff I have in mind. I see like, whoa, there's some great contrast of light and shadows there. So I'll show you what it looks like without these adjustments. All right, so again, this is before, this is after.
Nice.
And again, it's subtle. You can tell the difference. But once you really start to take the time to brush these things in, it's just what makes the photo, 100%.
We got Fergie in the chat. Welcome in, Fergie. It's good to see you. And some folks in chat asking about the Access app. I think that Daniel was talking about Lightroom, I believe, unless I missed something. And he was discussing a different app, but I'm pretty sure he was talking about Lightroom.
Access app. I'm not sure what they're referring to there.
I think that maybe was just the phrase or the title that he used just to describe Lightroom, because the title of Lightroom maybe wasn't on his mind right at that moment. Sometimes that happens, or people just say like, I like this CC app, or, you know, whatever. And they're talking about what's currently being used.
So one more thing I'm doing here is this light hitting the cliffs. Again, I want to accentuate that. Okay, and really demonstrate how that sun was just painting these cliffs and painting this composition in front of us. So we'll take these edits, or that brush overlay off. And I always like to do this before and after. Right. It's looking good. I like it.
Nice.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot more that I can do with this. I can really just sit here and really get very nuanced with this stuff, but this is the overall idea. I think it looks good. I'm pretty satisfied with it. So I think this is a good opportunity, Val, to head over to your segment. But before we do that, why don't we do a poll real quick? Because
let's do a poll.
Based on what you all decide, Val is going to take one of these photos and actually implement it in her illustration. So we have 3 options. This can be option 1. So Half Dome is option 1. Lake Tahoe will be option 2. And then I believe this is Pacifica. Pacifica will be option 3. So as you can see, this is the other edit I made. And look at all these other brushes that I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a lot more that went into this original edit. So let's get a poll going. I think Cody Bear.
Yeah, Cody, can you create a poll, or do you need me to pull up a link and do it? Just let me know. I'm more than happy to if you want. But yeah, we're going to be voting between these 3. I'm going to pull it into Photoshop, and we are going to create kind of an illustrative piece with it, which I think is going to be really, really fun. And I can't wait to see which one you folks choose for me. You guys are putting me on my toes real quick here, but I think it's going to turn out great. So I'm pumped.
Oh, well, people are already voting, and I see a lot of option 2 going on here, which is
me
the beautiful
too.
Lake Tahoe.
Ooh, Tahoe.
Option 3. Well, let's actually put this on paper. So Cody she put that straw poll in there. So everybody go in there and vote, because this is what we're going to use to determine what photo we're going to use. So everybody in the chat, go ahead and hit that link that Cody Bear just put on there, the straw poll, and vote on option 1, 2, or 3. And again, Half Dome is option 1, Lake Tahoe option 2, and then Pacifica, pretty close to San Francisco, is option 3. So go on and vote there. And then from here, we're going to see what the winner is. And then Val already has these 3 photos, but she's going to decide
Indeed.
which one to use based on everybody's results.
Pumped.
Cool. So we'll give it another minute or 2.
Yeah.
Just because I know it takes a little bit for people to put in their votes. But in the meantime, let me know if you have any other questions, or I can talk a little bit more about photo editing. Ooh, I do want to call this out. So again, remember how I said at the beginning of the histogram, I like to have sort of that natural bell curve with just data all over this range.
Yeah.
This right here is a pretty good representation of that. So as you can see, this histogram is pretty high. You know, there's a lot of troughs and peaks with all this data, and that shows that there's a lot of data, a lot of light data within my entire tonal range. So usually this is the type of histogram that I like to see when I'm done editing, because it lets me know that all this dynamic range that I have in this photo is being utilized and putting to good use, right?
Yeah.
You know, as you can see, this one was a single exposure. Again, doesn't mean that it's wrong or there's anything wrong with it, but you can see that it's not as spiky as the other one, because there isn't a lot of data or a lot of tonality range there like the other shot that was in HDR.
We got J Minx in the chat. Welcome in, J Minx. For those of you who don't know J Minx is my fairy god cousin. He is one of my dearest friends, and I'm super excited that you're here, Jay. Thank you so much for visiting. It's super cool to have you. Thanks, man. Also,
Hey,
Leah Jackson
thanks.
says, just wanted to say, although I went with option two, all of these photos are stunning, and I could not agree more.
Well, thank
All
you,
right.
everybody.
Should we check out our poll
Yeah, let's check
here?
it out.
Looks like Lake
Lake
Tahoe.
Tahoe. Lake Tahoe is
Yeah.
the winner.
I'm
So
into it. All right.
I'm into it too.
So
Let's do
I
Lake
have
Tahoe.
got I've got all this stuff pulled up. So whenever you're ready, we
Yeah,
can
so we're gonna switch over to Val's
cruise.
screen now, and boom. There
Boom.
we
All
go.
right. So I've got my image. I'm gonna drag this out of my little folder here. And so what I am gonna do is I'm going to sort of take this image and I'm going to position it into one of the shapes and silhouettes that is supplied in that resource pack that Cody linked in the chat. Because we have a California bear in here, which we got some mountain ranges, we got some trees, we got our bear. I'm probably going to take both of this bear and these trees up here. And I'm going to use the some clipping masks and the pen tool to create some shapes that basically recreates this piece, like I said, within that bear. And then we're going to come in with our brushes and kind of add some nice noise between the layers of shapes and stuff and do like this kind of illustrative graphic representation of Paco's photo here, which I'm pumped about. So I'm going to
This is
drag
so
this up
cool. I'm
here.
so excited to see this.
I'm going to throw this on a clipping mask just so we have this in the shape of the bear. And I hope you don't mind. I'm going to take a few liberties here because I want to make sure we have all of these elements like within this bear shape that really makes it look super cool. So I'm going to kind of resize just a little bit. And since we are doing like kind of an illustrative version of this, I don't think it matters too much if maybe the mountain isn't as tall as it is represented in the actual photo and all that, because we want to get everything like kind of in here. But before I noodle with that, I am going to just make sure I kind of have visible what I want visible, and then we're going to come in and kind of start styling it. And then maybe we can add, because we've got some beautiful open water here, maybe we can add like a little boat sitting there and all that good stuff. So we're gonna kind of we're gonna hit it with some voodoo magic here and see magic. What we can do.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take this off of our clipping mask because now I know kind of the position that I want. I'm gonna turn this down to like a little bit lower opacity just so I can see what I've got going on here. Or am I actually going to work underneath it? Maybe I won't. Maybe I will. I'll leave it on the opacity. And I can use the pen tool here, or I can use my brushes. I'll make a new layer. And I think actually what I might do is experiment with like using a brush instead of the pen tool first, just in case it kind of works better for me here. If you are familiar with Photoshop brushes and the pen tool, I think it's safe to say that like the days vary where sometimes your brush is better and sometimes the pen tool is like actually like, you know what? I'm going to work with you today. I'm gonna help you make some smooth shapes. But that's not always the case for me personally. So I'm gonna kind of let me grab actually I'm gonna, in keeping with our Paco side of the stream, I'm gonna use red for now just to kind of start making these shapes. And what I'm going to do, let me turn my smoothing down a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build myself a blueprint kind of this piece. And it's a little rocky, but bear with me. No pun intended.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, see, I am on the dad pun vibes today. And I'm just going to block out like the shape elements of everything that needs to be included. And then I'm going to come in and refine it and really make it represent the piece, the image honestly here. But I just want to make sure I've got some good shapes going. So we have a block for our water, which I will clean up. And then I am going to make a couple of different shapes here for the rocks. So I'm going to come in, and I think what I'm going to do is bring it down like so.
I do have to call out General Kenobi's comment in the chat because I know you're going to appreciate this.
Is it Star Wars related? It better be.
The pen tool is an elegant tool for a more civilized age. So, nice, General Kenobi.
Thank you.
Appreciate you and your Star Wars puns, my friend.
I look forward to seeing General Kenobi in the chat every day, to be perfectly honest. It gives me, I mean, obviously you're wonderful. I love having your company, but when you visit General Kenobi, it gives me an excuse to literally say hello there every day that I stream here.
Fun fact, when that movie came out on DVD, I actually recorded that, and that was my voicemail.
No.
So when people would call me, all they would hear is Kenobi say, hello there.
No, that's amazing.
I too was a Star Wars nerd, Val.
I didn't realize that I would be able to respect you more, but here we are. Here we are.
We do have Shashank in the chat saying, Bayern Munich scored. It's halftime now. By the way, Paco and Voodoo are scoring some great designs as well. Nice. Woo. Different types of scoring points, but I'll take it.
Yes, we are. I feel like we're in different courts working towards the same goal. Yes. Basically is what's happening here. I am, you can see I'm using some different shades of red here. And it might look a little strange, but I hope that you folks can start to get the gist of what I'm going for here. I've got these shapes kind of locked in. So I have our rocks here. I've got our water. I've got our mountain in the back. I'm not going to go into the trees because I have a tree shape that I'm going to kind of put in there. We've got our mountains in the back, and then I'm going to leave the sky blank for now because we can just kind of paint bucket of color in there. And then I am going to pull our image up above here, and I'm going to come in with this on a lower opacity, and I'm going to select our rock layer here, and I am going to grab this red, and I'm going to come in and just start to add in some rock shapes just to really start to make this kind of true to form on the original piece here. And it's going to be a little bit wonky for just a little bit longer. But in the meantime, what I would like to do is draw attention to the fact that I think that this is something that we all are going to face constantly in our work, where you start to work on something, especially if somebody's watching you. You know, you start to work on something, you start to kind of dig into a piece, and there's always going to be the quote unquote like ugly phase of the work. I don't think that there's any getting around to it, but I can promise you that if you stick to your basics, and well, most of the time I can promise you stick to your basics and you trust your own process, you do get over that hump. And I can also almost always guarantee that the ugly phase of your work looks way uglier to you personally than to anybody else who is taking a look at your work. So that is what I'm doing right now. Trust in the process, doing my thing.
I do have to call out some comments because the chat is just being amazing as always.
Aww.
Everything that has transpired has done so according to my graphic design. Quote unquote Valpatine. I just called you Valpatine.
Yes, Valpatine.
That is John.
Sith Lord Valpatine is the other name that I respond
Valpatine.
To. Yeah,
that's great. Jay Ming says, I didn't realize how much I enjoyed watching your art process, Val, and how much I'd miss watching it. Smiley face. And then Cody says it looks like you're painting with marinara sauce.
I think that's fair. I think I will accept that. Okay.
Some very landscapey marinara sauce.
So we've got like kind of these things blocked in here. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to take all of this and I am going to add to clipping mask, create clipping mask. Oops, I gotta unhide that. Okay, cool. And then underneath here, I will make one more layer, and I'm just going to grab kind of a light color and paint bucket it in there. So what we have now we have these shapes that kind of fill our bear here, which I think looks pretty cool. And since we're kind of doing our own thing here kind of elaborating and getting a little stylistic, I can extend the shapes, even though we didn't actually have that extension in our actual image, in our actual photo. But that's okay. And I encourage anybody who wants to maybe test this out to jump onto the maybe like the free portion of Adobe Stock or somewhere, grab some photos of your own and work along with me. You can do that, jump into some photo editing, utilize some of the tools and tips and tricks we learned from Paco today, or dive into the resource pack, which I'm sure Cody can link to us again, and download the coloring book or the coloring page and work on that, because as I said earlier, this is a wildfire awareness stream focusing on creatively, kind of cultivating some creative visuals based on the beauty and nature of Northern California, that we're going to post to kind of raise awareness for these wildfires and offer folks a way to offer support and do their part to help with what's going on, especially if you're not in a position where you can donate to a cause. So you can either kind of loan some creativity here, make some art, or make some friends in the chat and retweet or repost some of their art. So long as, I say retweet, when I say repost, I don't mean like take it and post it. But if you can repost just with the algorithm of a site like Twitter with the retweet and stuff, do that, and just help get the word out there about what is going on. All right, so we have I think I'm going to clean up some of these.
You have some questions.
Here. Oh, please go for it.
First of all, I do want to shout out a comment. Shami says, I agree, I'm never happy with my work, but people like it. Maybe I should upload it now that you have said this. I love your work. I think this was when you were talking about how everybody's got an ugly face and you shouldn't be hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what she was saying, she or he, and brought some words of inspiration. So nice.
Yeah, I encourage you to post it, because you never know how your creativity is going to affect other people. We are very biased and sometimes not always positively biased when it comes to our own creations. So remember that.
Yeah. And then this was a crazy turn of events. I don't think I've ever seen this, but somebody else in the chat named General Grievous has entered the chat. And it says, General Kenobi, you are a bold one. And now they're just quoting Star Wars. And I recognize all the quotes. I'm not ashamed to say it. Okay,
I love this.
Anyways, back to some design questions. First of all, we did find a name for this bear.
Okay. All right.
It's called by Cody Bear as Marinara Bear.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I accept this as fact
like
and truth.
It's funny. And then J Minx is asking, so are you cropping pieces of the photo under the different layers of red to manipulate / work with it?
What I've done is at first I had the image underneath, and I just started kind of blocking in shapes of basically what's going on in the image. And then I brought it up top and repositioned things to just kind of get basically our composition kind of locked in here. And I think I am going to bring this down. We're going to get some more of the mountain and stuff in there. And then I may or may not do some noodling with these, let me see, these rock shapes, just to make sure they don't encroach upon the joints of our bear.
Then John did ask if this is Mustafar.
It can be in your heart if you want it to be.
It's got the color palette of it.
It does
look like a volcanic.
Although we are not
planet.
keeping these colors. These are colors just so that I can see the difference between everything that's happening. So don't worry. It is not going to stay marinara or Mustafar-esque, I promise. I just needed to get these shapes kind of in here, and I might bring this up just slightly. Okay, so now we have our water, we have our rocks and mountains, we have our sky and everything, and now we can actually work on turning this into something that looks super cool. So the first thing I am going to do, how are we doing on time? All right, I got about 30 minutes left, I think.
35-ish minutes. Yeah, we got Shauna in the chat. Shauna, what's up?
Yo, Mama Shauna Parmigiana.
Rising.
Good to see you. So I'm going
Wow.
to actually take this image off the clipping mask, release clipping mask. I'm going to unhide it. Release the clipping mask.
Release the clipping mask.
And I'm going to need everyone to do that announcement every time they do this on Adobe Live from now on, by the way. So I'm going to put this up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample a color palette from here. So I'm going to grab this nice blue color here from these rocks, these like blues and greens that I think are just beautiful. I'm going to grab some of this tan here.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah, we're going to grab
I gotta say, the water
this.
literally looks like that. I don't know if anybody's been to Lake Tahoe, but that is my home.
You are absolutely correct.
And it's, I mean, it's no joke. The pictures that you see of Lake Tahoe, that is how the water looks. And even cooler, if you want to take a step further, if you ever visit, bring some goggles. There's nothing like jumping into a blue lake and just seeing for just hundreds and hundreds of feet because of how clear the water is.
Yeah, that's honestly, that sounds a lot like the emerald pools we were talking about.
The emerald pools, actually, I saw those yesterday, Val.
Did you?
I had not heard of emerald pools and actually looked it up. That place looks super cool.
It is a special, special place. It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some good colors. What is this? So we're gonna dump that in there too. Maybe grab some of this over here. And this looks like a kind of a solid group of colors. Let me grab some of this goldish color, I think. And we're gonna focus on these for right now. So I'm gonna hide that. And what I'm gonna do is I am gonna come in. Let me see if I'm gonna actually test something out real quick because I just had an idea. I'm going to lock transparency real quick and use my brush, and I'm gonna grab this blue color. I'm gonna see. Look at that. We can start. I'm sorry for the goblin cackle just then.
That was the greatest laugh I've heard.
So if you lock transparency, you can come in because I've got all of these shapes and stuff that I'm using, and I can start to take my colors and kind of drop them in here where I want them, and really start kind of making this all kind of color coordinated and look the way I want it. So
very cool.
I'm wondering why I do have it locked here. I wonder what's going on now. Hold on, we're gonna solve this. Let me lock the
Cody Bear goes,
for...
quote unquote, goblin noises.
There we go. Yes, the goblin noises are real. It's no joke, folks. We are not playing around. All right, so I should be able to, I wonder why. Let me do some, oh, I see what the issue is here, is I have used some of the colors for certain portions of the mountain on other layers. So I was like, why is it not going to the end here? And it's because I got really spicy with where I was putting my color earlier and made some mistakes, but that's okay. We're going to grab...
Our sauce is spicy.
Yeah. That's honestly, what do you do if not living for getting spicy with colors? You know, like, what are you doing? Okay, let me grab, I think I need my reference again. So let me pull this up. We are going to grab some of this blue. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with a lot of the darker values that's used in a lot of these things, because you can see that some of this is like pretty desaturated and not entirely, I'm not going to say not accurate, because these colors are definitely, let me see, let me grab. Do I want to use, no, I want to grab actually maybe a darker gray. What I want to do is use like kind of the darker colors that are in these elements that I'm illustrating, and then lighten them gradually with more of the other unique colors that are there. So let's grab this blue color and kind of throw that up there. So we have mountains, we've got water, we've got our kind of foreground rocks here, and now we're going to start making this look legit. So we've got some colors, we got all our pieces in place. I'm going to leave that up there. In hindsight, it might have been a pretty good idea maybe to add an artboard like make this an artboard piece so I could have my reference image in another artboard, but that is okay.
What would that do if that was an artboard?
So let me see, maybe I can actually, I wonder if I can, oh, artboard tool. Aha, we're gonna actually just give myself an artboard. So if I do this, I can put an artboard over here, and then I can drag my image over here and throw that into my artboard. And then I can have this image over here that I can just look at without having to have it overlay on top of my my bear here, or make it really small where I can't see a lot of the details. So what I'm gonna do, I think, is I'm going to convert these shapes to smart objects, because I'm going to leave them where they are. This is something I like to do. So I've come in and I've created these shapes, and I've got them where I want them. I've got them colored the way I want. But the thing about it is they are all like freeform layers that just happen to be clips to the shape of the bear. So one of the things I can do is I could either hold control and click this bear so that I select everything that's in the layer, and I could mask all of these pieces. Or what I can do, and this might be a better idea, is I can take these all off clipping masks, like release. Actually, I can come in here. I'm just going to select them all and release the clipping mask. Release the clipping masks.
Release the mask.
And then what I can do is I can make a layer above them. I'm gonna get a little spicy here. And then I'm gonna come in with a selection tool, if I can. And I am going to, I should be able to, hold on.
J-Mang says, oh wow, I never knew about the artboard. That looks so helpful. Perfect.
Artboards are very fun.
Yeah.
I should be able to, I wonder why I can't, for whatever reason, when I right click, it doesn't pull up my menu, but that's fine. I can inverse selection. And on my new layer, I can take a light color and, oh, because I'm on the other artboard. That's why. This is why it's not working. Let me come over here. Oh, you know what? Creating that artboard might actually have messed up the way my my layers go. So maybe I won't do that. That's a good idea, but I probably should have done that at the start. So I'm gonna redo this process that I've just done. I'm gonna take all of these off clipping mask, control to select. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to grab my selection tool, and now it does my select inverse the way I wanted it. And then I can take that bright color and I can kind of color my background, add a background in here. And then what I might do as well is I might, like I said, I was gonna possibly take a few liberties, and that means that I might actually bump this down just to give us more of a composition within the bear, if that makes sense. I'm gonna have to come in and add some more colors and things, but that is, I think that looks good for now. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I do want to add some details to our water here. So now, because these are not clipping masks, I can add clipping masks to these layers, which is going to be really cool. So let me make a new layer. I'm going to create a clipping mask, and I'm going to come in with one of my favorite things that I love to do, is I'm going to use the dissolve blending mode.
Dissolve blending mode.
And every time I do this, people are like, what is that even for?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what it's specifically for. Well, I do know what it does. And I don't know exactly what they had in mind when they added it, but I can tell you what I use it for. And that is, first of all, the way the dissolve blending mode works is whenever you use a soft round brush, you get this really nice gradient. In fact, I'm going to turn this on to normal here. Or actually I'll make a new layer just so I can demo this. When you use like a soft round brush, you get this nice gradient kind of soft haze with your brush. When you use the brush like that on the dissolve blending mode, it does the exact same thing, but everything is 100% pixel perfect. There's no transparency, there's no fade, there's no gradient. It's just pixels placed on a grid to mimic that spread, basically. So you get the same effect, but it's almost like a spray can. And if I zoom in here, you can see.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can see like how precise this is. It's just solid pixels.
Oh, that's so funny.
Which is really neat. But one of the things that I discovered is if you make more than one kind of stroke like this on dissolve layers, and then you merge them together, it's no longer a dissolve layer. It is now a transparency, like regular pixel layer, and it actually offers a really cool effects. So if I come in here,
goes, what? People use this? Teaches your ways.
Yes, I'm going to.
We're learning. We're learning.
I'm going to grab this dark blue color, and I'm going to, on my my dissolve here, is I'm going to kind of throw this in here. And I'm even going to, let's make a new layer. Let's make a clipping mask. I'm even going to come in here. Let's put this back on dissolve. And I'm going to add a little bit of that color. I'm going to get a little artsy with some of my blues and stuff. Let's take a look at our image again, just so what happened to our image? There we go. Yeah, we've got some of that light blue in there. Let's make another layer. Let's put this on dissolve, and let's see if we can. I'm gonna have to, you know what, I think this happens to me every once in a while. And it's a slight pain. I'll probably would need to restart Photoshop in order to change it, but we won't because it's not 100% necessary. And that is that my hotkeys are not working at the moment, which happens, as I said. So I'm going to probably have to maneuver around and just click things in the menus for now. So I apologize if it takes me slightly longer to do some of these things.
Oh my goodness, it's going to take you half a second longer?
I know.
How dare you?
I know, how dare. I'm going to throw some of that in there. I'm going to noodle with this a little bit more, but I am going to grab all these, and I'm actually going to, let me make this, they can't be a mix of clipping masks and not clipping masks. So they either have to all not be clipping masks or all be clipping masks to merge. And I can Control E and merge them. And if I look in here, you can see it has, actually, hold on, let me see. One sec. I'm going to do it with just these two real quick. And I'm going to take them off of clipping masks. And what it should do, release my clipping masks. So I have my soft pixels, my hard pixels in here. And then if I merge them, it should kind of soften it. So I have like more of a gradient going here. Let me see if I can turn this down on a lower opacity. And I'm going to merge this one as well. Yeah, there we go. So do you see how it made that subtle change where it was very, very harsh because it had all of the pixels and stuff, but when I merge it, it actually softens down into like a noise texture, basically.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
So that actually is really, really cool. So I've basically just been using the dissolve brush to paint in a noise texture, if that makes sense.
I think so. I don't really know what a noise texture is going to do, but maybe you'll explain that. By the way, if you guys don't know, I don't know Photoshop that well. I know the basics, but I am not a self-professed Photoshop master. I just stick to photo and video apps. Although Photoshop is of course used for photo, but I mainly stick to Lightroom.
So if I like typically what I use, let me actually grab a darker color than this. If I use a noise texture, it's usually to add a bit of texture to what I'm doing. So I don't just have like flat, flat shapes and things. I'm going to add some color in here. And so one thing that is really cool to do is to be able to, how do I say it? Like, to be able to add that texture as you go instead of designing super crisply and perfectly as you're going along in your piece. For me, that's everything, because when I want to do something that is a little more precise, as far as like something like this, where I'm working with like hard shapes, it's actually really hard for me to stay kind of confident with a piece, like I was saying earlier, through the ugly stage, because I like texture. I like paint brushes. I like charcoal brushes. I like gouache brushes and all kinds of like cool, crazy stuff to be in my artwork. And if I can't see that texture as I'm going along, it's really difficult for me to like stay on target, if that makes sense, because I'm not getting that buttery.
Stay on target.
yeah, that crispiness, that goodness that I really like in a piece of art. And I'm gonna actually try it with this now.
Yeah, okay, I totally get it. It's like when people introduce film noise, so to say, to photographs to make it look a little bit more authentic, is not as perfect, you know, give it a little bit of grain to it.
But it usually takes place, honestly. Let me grab this color right here. It's something that usually takes place at the very end. So I'd have to design that way the whole time and then put one final filter over it. But this allows me to use my brush to achieve that texture as I go through it, which is just really helpful to me personally. So I'm going to mimic some of these colors in here, some of this blue color kind of coming out from the rocks, and then I'm maybe going to add some more textury stuff. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a shine to the top of the water to actually make it look, because we're putting in a lot of murky texture and stuff, which doesn't look 100% accurate to our image. There we go. That's actually starting to look like I'm starting to visualize it myself. But it's coming together. But in a sec here, I'm going to do my thing. And what I mean by do my thing is I'm going to add one final detail that'll like finally make it look like the thing it's supposed to look like. Okay. Maybe I'll grab this color. I don't think I sampled that earlier. And I'm going to put some of this encroaching underneath our rocks here. And I also want to make sure that I grab a texture brush and put, because I've got these rocks peeking out from under the water here, or from above the water here. But if you look in the image, we do have this dark color where a lot of these rocks have these shapes underneath of the rock below the water.
Very cool.
We're gonna
nice detail. It's making it look that much more realistic.
Gonna try and go for it. I need to make a new layer there actually to do that. So I'm gonna throw that underneath there right quick. And I am glancing at my time here because I want to make sure I get at least a large portion of this done where you guys can see like a substantial piece before we have to take off. And I think
we have about 25 minutes, so we got some time.
So I'm going to add boom, boom, boom. There's some little scribbles of our rocks, kind of just kind of pulling them into a 3D space, if you will, and starting to mimic life a little more closely. So we have those in the water. And then I can also add a little bit of light, but I'll do that on the other layer. So I'm going to, I wonder what it would look like if we put this on a dissolve too. Why not? Let's try it. Has a little bit of texture. That's fine with me. I'm going to put this on a clipping mask too. And then I'm going to come in with I made a noise brush, like a legit noise brush. So I'm going to use my noise brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start.
That word, a noise brush.
A noise brush. Put this on a clipping mask too. Is I'm going to start. What I'm doing here is I'm actually clicking and holding shift. And what Photoshop will do with your brushes when you do this, there we go, we get some bright there, is when you tap, for example, let me grab like a red brush and I'll make a totally new layer above here and we'll do a little quick example. When you tap somewhere, make like a, if I can here, I threw that in a group. So if I tap here and then I hold shift and tap somewhere else, it will draw a direct line. So if you grab like something that's a little sharper, you can actually, and as long as you don't lift up shift, it will actually continue to make straight lines to wherever you tap. And it's just when you let it go, then you start making another, a whole other line that's not connected. So if I want to, I can come through and do that with my noise brush here, and I can make myself draw straight lines. That's not, because you can hold shift and you can draw a straight line that is horizontal or vertical. But if you want a line that is straighter, that is not on that grid, then you can actually do it this way. Let's grab some of this, and I'm gonna start adding some of that. Maybe I'll do that at a slightly different angle. And start adding some of that noise in there, just kind of making it look like water a little bit. And I'm going to leave that because I feel like we've added some details there, and I think that it needs some more work to kind of really bring it to life. But I'm going to move to other elements in the piece just so we can get some solid detail on there. And then what I'll probably end up doing is posting the final version after I maybe put in a little bit more time to it off camera. But let's see, we've got our rocks in our main mountain here. So this is a fun one. I'm going to come back, grab my soft round again, and I'm going to grab a darker green color, put this on a clipping mask, set it to dissolve. And I'm going to come in like this and add some green. And I also want to add a darker green too. Maybe something that's less saturated down here on another layer. So let's put that on dissolve too. Make sure that's a clipping mask.
I'm starting to see how this is all coming together, and it's got me so excited.
It's kind of a doozy right at the beginning, right?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the plan was, but now that I'm seeing everything, it's kind of what we're talking about with photography. It's like all those little things, they add to the final piece, and this is just looking so cool.
All right, let's add another clipping mask, and we're gonna do, so we've got that yellow, like that gold color, kind of. So I'm gonna come in with some of this gold, make sure actually we have this on dissolve as well. It's going to look a little interesting right at first, and we're going to kind of splash that down here. And then I also am going to come in with, honestly, this is kind of a cool color here, and it looks very like this, this dark color, but it's more in the distance, so I'm kind of going to desaturate it. And on another layer, I'm also going to come through with that on a clipping mask and dissolve, and I'm going to start adding in just some smaller dark portions because we got that dirt that kind of goes up the side of the mountain there. And then we're going to come in with that brighter green, and I am going to throw some brighter green on it, and then I have tree silhouettes. So we're going to populate it with some trees from our resource pack. So
Yana's asking if you're gonna add a couple TIE fighters to the sky. And then he
goes, listen,
don't
like tempt me.
Don't type in 2 H's.
Yeah, don't tempt me because it's entirely possible. And I didn't make any promises specifically that I wasn't going to do Star Wars stuff today, but I feel like that would defeat the purpose. So I should probably just not. I should refrain, and nobody should encourage me. I would have thought that most of you would have learned your lesson by now, but maybe you're just about as Star Wars crazy as I am.
Could be. Bliss says, this is very gratifying, and I have to agree.
I'm glad that you guys are enjoying it. Thank you so much. I'm gonna grab, let's see, is this that's kind of a different color.
And this is the first time ever that I've had anybody use my photography in some sort of inspiration and collaboration, so I'm just sitting here in awe too.
I'm so excited.
Very, very cool
to be the one. This is cool. Let's merge these. So we've got like kind of a texture going on here, but I think what I'm going to do, like with what I did with the water, is we've got this, kind of amalgam of the colors that we want to use there in our nice kind of noisy texture. And then I'm going to come in with a texture brush and like really kind of pull the shapes out. We had some of that gold that I think needs to be revived in here, just to kind of get back in there. Oh, there we go. My hotkeys are back. Thank you. And I'm just gonna kind of scribble in here and start bringing in these colors that need to come back, giving it some more texture than just like the soft noise. And then we're gonna throw some trees on it. And I think that I am going to use something that I observed Cody doing yesterday. And that is, we are going to do some impressionistic happy little trees on top of using our silhouettes for trees. So we're gonna do our little scribbles, because we were talking yesterday about when you go to suggest something to a viewer, somebody that's taking in your art. Sometimes you don't need to 100% paint exactly what it is that you're trying to convey. It doesn't have to be. This is a brush with a lot of very interesting settings. Let me change. You don't have to actually paint 100% exactly what it's supposed to be. You can paint, like kind of dissect your subject and paint the bare minimum amount of information about it that a person would need to fill in the blanks themselves. And that's kind of the basis of,
as you said.
The bare minimum.
Minimum.
Yes, indeed. I'm trying not to be entirely too precious with this. I think I'm gonna give it a rest. Maybe a tiny bit more yellow around the edges here. And then I'm gonna leave it, and I will maybe detail a little bit more later, because I want some more time here, because we're coming up pretty fast. It's funny how time flies when you're chilling with good people. Yes. That is just how it works. Okay, maybe I did put that one on dissolve, honestly, but I just did it with a texture brush. So I might do the same thing here and just see. I want to see what it looks like. I just want to test it.
Everybody in the chat is saying happy little trees.
Happy little trees.
Little tree emotes coming in.
That's how it works.
That's how it works.
Bob Ross, king of art. That works. I
like it.
Okay, I feel like it needs some love. It's a little muddy, but that's okay, because we're gonna come in. We're gonna grab our trees, which we should have down here possibly. Hello, I drew these trees myself.
I was gonna ask, did the bear and the tree, are those a Val special?
Yes, there are Val specials, 100%. Okay, let's throw these in here. I'm gonna hide that one, and I'm gonna come in here.
Pila says, after all the Paco hype, I still missed half of this. Well, good thing this will be available on replay.
Yes.
Once we are done. Don't go anywhere, though, because we're still live. But you can tune in and rewind afterwards. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm super excited because I feel like we got lucky. We got like a bunch of regulars that came in today. We got some new folks came in, that like our new friend Daniel, who was super pumped about everything that he saw on the stream today. That was really cool. And I think he kind of jumped in and watched a little bit, and he didn't have time to stay, but he just wanted us to know that he was really enjoying himself.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
So, I've got this silhouette, and I can come in here and like place these trees. And I think I'm definitely going to do that, but I'm going to actually play it smart, and we're going to do this a different way. I'm going to hide these. Okay. I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to make this larger again. This is what we're going to do. We're going to be fancy like, and we're going to come up here.
I have an idea what you might do, but I am going to just wait and see.
Well, you'll have to tell me when we're finished and let me know. I'm going to hide all of this real quick, and I'm going to stretch this out, and I'm going to center it. And then I am going to Control A to select my canvas, and I'm going to come up here to edit, define brush preset. And I'm going to make
I think I was right. Yes.
Val tree brush. That's what we're going to do.
Tree brush. I knew it was going to happen.
Boom. And then I'm going to unhide this.
Smart.
And I'm going to.
Very smart.
Yeah. I think that would actually really benefit us if we had a brush.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yes. So we're going to make a new layer. And I am not going to put it on a clipping mask. And I have my tree brush. And I'm going to grab this green, and I'm going to come in, and I can stamp. I mean, you could do it with a stamp. You could also come in and really edit it if you want, but maybe we will edit it. Let's see what we can do. Let's see. Scattering. Let's scatter. Ooh. That looks like a forest right there.
With the click of a button, literally.
Yeah, count. Let's see no, we don't want to count jitter really. Shape dynamics. We could do angle jitter, but I want the trees to look like they're growing straight up. We could do like a roundness jitter, and we could do a size jitter. So size jitter means that some of the trees that are like stampable in here are going to be smaller than others, which kind of lends to more of a, you know, a cool effect. And I think we're going to go with that. And I'm going to save another brush. So whenever you edit something, you need to make sure that you like edit your brush. You need to make sure you resave it, because you can set those settings and you can go use the brush, but the moment you switch away from that brush without having saved it,
oh no, you
will lose it. So I'm going to call this Val Tree 2. And then I have it selected here, and we're gonna hide this, make a new layer, and we're gonna come in and see. Ooh yeah, ooh yeah.
I like it. People are losing their minds in chat, by the way, with this
yes
little brush tree hack.
I think I'm gonna move this underneath our shape here, just so that I can kind of get this back here without encroaching upon too many things, and that just allows me to kind of make this look, you know, kind of simulate our image here. And then on top, I will come in with a slightly darker, let me actually select it from here. And I can come in with some trees right here, just kind of scattered. I might even turn them down just a little bit, but I just want to like get some trees in here and really kind of blend this in, start making it look like a forest.
I think these trees are really making, it's that little piece, I think, that's bringing it all together.
Just kind of, well, because it also kind of puts it into perspective a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it's still, like I said, I think that this is something that needs a little more work and a little more time, but I think that it's coming together and starting to like show itself as the piece that it is now.
Right.
So let's grab our, also you
Bliss
can see
is asking, will you do color jitter? Now, I don't think that's something we necessarily have to do, but I'm also curious to know what color jitter is. I guess it's a different color each time you stamp it.
Yes, so that was actually I actually don't particularly prefer color jitter, and that was actually what was happening with the brushes I was using earlier that I switched from when I said this brush has some interesting settings. It was this brush, I believe. So if I have like this yellow sampled, it should, maybe that was, let me see. Was it this one? It was doing it for a second where I was painting, and then I think I switched to a slightly different color. Oh no, maybe it wasn't that one. But basically, you can add another color to your brush. Maybe we can do it just for the sake of, you know, doing something interesting here. Let's go into our brush settings and go to color dynamics. I think we can do foreground and background jitter. And what it does,
okay. That's
you
cool.
see that? That's
actually, yeah.
I might actually go with that. I think you're right. I think, who is that suggested that?
That was Bliss.
Okay, Bliss.
Golden Rose. Good call out, Bliss.
Yeah, I think that actually works really well for this project. So I'm going to do a new brush preset, and I'm going to call this color. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this green color, and then I'm going to go over to my foreground, and I'm going to select a more desaturated darker green, like that. And so what it does is it cycles between my foreground and background color. We might need more of a difference between the two. Actually, let's do something like this. And I'm going to make my brush smaller. Yeah, so we got like a little bit of, you can see if I zoom in here, we've got some difference in our trees.
Different jitter.
Yeah, kind of on the mountain here.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Lighting.
And then another thing that you can do just to add a little more pizzazz to it is you can, I think we only just have a couple more minutes, so I guess I didn't finish it, but I think you guys can see how it's coming together. Is we can make, since we're not putting these on clipping masks because we wanted it to break the borders of our mountain, we can put a clipping mask on this. Where did I lose it just then? Here we go. And we can come in, clipping mask, with kind of a textury brush, something like this. on our clipping mask, and we can take like this color. Let me make sure I have that from these trees in the back here that are getting more sun. And we should be able to, yeah, here we go, kind of come in and add some light to the tops of our trees that we've painted in. And then maybe even grab a darker green and kind of start slotting in some darker green to some of these just to kind of start popping them out, which I think works. I would kind of focus on doing it a little bit more. I think we're both in the same boat today, where you plan or kind of have an idea of like how you want to execute something, and then you get on stream, and it's like the moment you get on stream, you're like, oh, this is gonna take me longer.
I always joke when we used to be in the studio that live streaming just operates in another dimension. You know, there's too much time when you don't need it, and too little time when you do need it.
That's exactly the
paradox.
Truth. 100%. That's seems to be what happened.
Awesome. I mean, I think the idea is there, and we even have a really cool comment being asked by Fergie, who's asking, would you maybe sell this as a digital print or anything to raise awareness / funds to donate to the California wildfires?
You know what? I was thinking about doing that, and the only reason why I did not set that up for this particular pairing of streams is because of the logistics of like taking all that money and donating it. And so what I was thinking I might do is do a few of these and then still do like encouraging people to create their pieces and post them and raise awareness. But if somebody does participate with creating art or show proof that they've donated to Red Cross, then I could add them to a raffle giveeway where I can send them a print.
That's pretty cool.
So that is something that I could do where I can offer it as a possible cool thing to people who are participating, and you could be eligible to get your hands on it, rather you are able to donate financially or able to create, because that is like a main point that I've been trying to hammer home here, is that you can participate and you can get involved and do something even if you cannot spare the money.
Monetary.
Yeah.
I think that's a good theme here, so don't worry. It's not necessarily that you have to spend money, but it's just bringing awareness, right?
Yeah, it's just like I think that bringing awareness and telling people about it and showing people information and putting some beautiful art with helpful links where people can see it, who maybe could donate, or people who just really need to see that information, really need to see those safety tips or whatever. I think that is doing good. And to me, I don't think, like, if that's what you can do, if that's what you're capable of putting forward for this, that should not be considered any less than somebody who is in a position where they can donate financially, because it is still help, it's still support, it's still coming from a good, loving place, and that is important. So, yeah, positivity.
Jamie's saying, I love this so much, so need to see Paco's photograph morph into this. Oh. This is
I can't wait to post it
too.
finished.
I know she loves this type of stuff, and I love it too. This is so cool to see.
Yeah, we got about 3 minutes here, so I think
we
we're
got about
coming,
3 minutes.
Yeah. But I like adding that dark, because now I'm starting to see individual trees on this mountain. And if I zoom out, like if you really zoom out and kind of look at like the thumbnail version of it, it's actually starting to look like a serious forest on the side of that hill right there. And I'm digging it. So I'm definitely going to throw in some rocks.
I mean, this is, I can't wait to see.
Thanks.
This is so cool.
I'm pleased with it.
Over here.
Yeah, if you got a little grin on, you're so cool, Paco. Yeah. I'm honestly, we couldn't have done it without your excellent photography. So I can't wait to post it. And then also, maybe, is this a piece that you actually have linked on on Instagram somewhere? Because I'd love to be able to link your Instagram so people can see the photo to like when I post it, which would be really cool.
Yeah.
Just so
we
people
can definitely set that up.
Yeah,
just so
see
people
where
see
it's
like
at.
the part 1 and part 2 of this whole thing.
Really yeah. And then General Kenobi's like, it's over, Val. I'm sorry, General Kenobi. Technically, right this moment, I have the high ground. So, but yeah, this was so much fun. Thank you, Paco, for joining me for this. It's been just a treat and a blessing having you here. And thank you for creating with us today too. It's always like super cool to get to have you on the stream, but being able to watch you edit photos today was a real treat. And I think I'm pretty sure I speak for everybody in the chat on that one. So,
well, thank you for having me, Val. Thank you for setting this up. And I want to thank everybody in the chat just for tuning in and hearing us just bring awareness to, again, these California wildfires that just are not getting better each year. And Val and I have honestly both been personally affected by it. So it's something pretty gnarly, but I'm glad we're doing something about it. I'm glad we're bringing awareness, and there's a bunch of resources too that we can all do something about, even if it's just through art or painting. You know, it doesn't have to be monetary value. It doesn't have to be hours of manual labor that you put in, but you know, just simple something. Well, not simple, but you know, you get the idea. Here's the sketch, and it's very cool. It's tied us to a theme that we both personally really care about.
I think the power of that positivity and that caring and desire to contribute is important enough to me. I can say that as somebody who's affected by these fires. That means everything to me. It really does. So, you know, people do what they can. We're all from different places and different situations, and we have different capabilities when it comes to what we can do, and anything that you can do is important, you know? So
I agree.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I think it's probably time for us to skedaddle, but it's been a blast, everybody.
Yes. Again, thank you all for tuning in. Stick around. We have the XD Daily Creative Challenge Creative Encore coming up. So it is previously recorded, but the chat is live. And I think we have to draw along after that. Oh, God, don't quote me on that. I don't have the schedule in front of me. But anyways, thank you again, everybody, for joining in. Thank you again, Val, for setting this up. It's been so fun to be able to be part of this. And yeah, we'll catch you next time.
Adios, everybody.
Bye, everybody.